My next guest is coming off a huge win last weekend at UFC Vegas 66, getting it done over Bobby Green. It's Drew Dober back here on the program. Drew, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. Monday after a fight, I mean, we're swollen but happy.
Yes, and what a win that was. Where does, you've had a lot of really big fights in your career. Where does this win rank in terms of career highlights?
Probably up there. I mean, Bobby Green is such a seasoned and experienced veteran, crafty, the fact that, he's hard to hit and even harder to knock out, and we finished him in that fashion. Man, very grateful.
The first round, I know Green was, having some success. How are you feeling going into the second? I was curious about that.
I was making some mistakes. It's kind of like the weird dynamic of like the rhythm of the fight, right? We came out and then like he set that rhythm and kind of like he knew what I was doing that first round. So at the end, I was like, all right, I lost that round. We have to make some adjustments to come out in the second with something different. And my coaches gave me that advice. We put forth the effort, and it worked out.
How did you celebrate after the win? Big knockout. You get the bonus. What's that evening like? Getting to celebrate a big win like
We
that?
were at an Italian restaurant, and right after that, a good old cigar lounge.
Oh,
Got to
cool.
light up a stogie and just sit back and enjoy the moment.
That's cool. Do you always do that after a win?
Uh, as of recently, yeah, it wasn't to like my 30s, but yeah, I really enjoy cigars, especially a nice cigar bar. And yeah, I'm getting a little too old for that loud music and nightclubs. So man, it was key. It was quite enjoyable.
What the cigar bar that you went to? What did it look like? I just imagine like something close to like a library or something.
Pretty close. It's called Eight Cigar Lounge at the Resorts World, and yeah, it's a very like kind of like laid back leather, chairs, chill. They had like some live music going on. This guy playing some acoustic. It's like a nighttime coffee shop, pretty much.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I like that as opposed to popping bottles at a club. It seems a little bit more mellow, which is great, man. That's awesome. And I mentioned the bonus there. I know you're still waiting for the money, I'm sure, but what do you plan on doing with the bonus money?
Now, man, we got to build a nursery.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I got some plans for this money as far as building this family. As far as the house, the nursery, and then supplying my children with everything that I've never had or I didn't get. So yeah, we're this bonus is being dad status for sure.
Yeah, and of course after the fight, we know you wanted politely sort of mention, hey, Jalin Turner, that would be a fun fight. I know Jalin has since tweeted his manager after that. Has there been any updates since the fight?
No, not at all. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything anytime soon. But yeah, people want to hear an answer when they ask you who do you want to fight next, and ideally I want Michael Chandler or Fiziev. But if we're working right now and try to be realistic, Jalin Turner is a realistic fight for me. Everyone agrees to a fight on Twitter.
Yeah.
We gotta wait and see what that background conversation ends up. So as of now, I'm just gonna enjoy Christmas and I'm gonna be ready.
You talked about this in your post fight as well about how Bobby Green actually accepted a fight against you. Have you had situations like that over the last year and a bit of fighters turning down fights with you?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Even more recently. Um, yeah, I pretty much agree to most fights that I think I've only turned down like one fight in my entire career. So like I agreed to many fights for December, and then no paperwork showed up. And then it wasn't until Bobby Green that the contract came through. So I guess other people have their ideas of how they want their careers to go. But in my opinion, I think these fighters need to take more risks and chase greatness.
Does that surprise you as someone who's been in the UFC for a while that you're still having this issue at all of people not wanting to fight and agreeing?
I've actually had this problem since my pro debut. I went through 5 opponents in my professional debut. So I think the joke is everyone wants to be a fighter until it's time to be a fighter, and that's just common, regionally to amateur to professional UFC.
Is there any pressure like to, because I'm sure you're sitting there being like, man, I got to get an opponent. And then, finally you get Bobby Green. But is there any pressure to like start talking some trash or anything? Or are you just one of those guys like, hey, the cards will fall like they need to and we'll get an opponent eventually?
Yeah, I just trained for dates. And so I picked December. There's 3 cards in December, and I was like, I'm going to train for December 3rd until I hear otherwise. And so I train for dates. And like to be honest, my first one this year, I was training for Ricky Glenn, and then ended up with Terrence McKinney. It was the same date though, so I train for all opponents, but specifically, I just pick a date that I want, and then we just go for there.
You mentioned Jalin earlier. Let's say this fight does end up happening. How are you looking at that fight from a style perspective? Because he's, I think, the tallest lightweight in your division. I think he's like 6'3".
He is not the first 6'3" guy that I fought, and I feel I do really well with taller guys because they punch down and then leave their chin open. Plus, I have the teammate Neil Magny,
I was gonna
who's
say.
long, if not longer. So like stylistically, I think it's problems that I can manage. It's just now kind of just the small intricacies of his grappling, his takedowns, and like how he likes to strike.
Yeah. And another big fight in your weight class took place on your card as well. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but Arman Saryukin, Damir Ismagulov in the co-main event. What did you think of that fight? I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
Yeah, I think Arman has some slick wrestling, control, and he knows how he needs to win fights. So it's definitely not a style of fighting that I'm gonna, try to jump towards. But man, I think Arman looked incredible, and he's so young too.
Yeah. Did you see a contender in that division at some of the performances he's had? Even the fight before that against Mateos Gamrot, some people felt like he did enough to win that.
Yeah, no, I thought Arman won the fight with Gamrot. Just I mean, he inched it. But yeah, I mean, from his debut, short notice debut against Islam Makhachev, like he stands out. And yeah, he poses some problems to the lightweight division, and I think he's gonna climb up real quick.
And at the top of your division, obviously Islam winning the title. I know we had spoken before that, but were you surprised at how dominant Islam was in that fight against Charles? No.
No, not at all. That was as expected. I think the knockdown surprised me, but not really as much because I know Islam he has some good stand up. He just chose not to use it with me. But just when you're in there, even Bobby Green said the same thing. Like you feel like a different monster that you've never felt before. Like, oh man, this guy's a problem. So when I saw that fight, it was as expected.
Is there anyone right now in the division you think could beat Islam? Obviously, excluding yourself, who just fought him, but is there anyone else you kind of look at and say, hey, maybe this is the guy?
Man, I think Dustin Poirier could give him some problems. That'd be a close fight. Really, the fight IQ in that fight would be the winning factor. But yeah, as of right now, if I answer honestly, I think Islam Makhachev is an equation that the division hasn't figured out yet. So I don't really see him, being defeated. Man, Volkanovski, he's got a solid chance, but I think there's going to be a significant size difference in that fight. And as always, I think Islam's going to surprise people.
Speaking of that, who do you have winning in that fight with Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev? Who do you see getting it done?
I have Islam winning probably a decision.
And I'm sure you've been asked this before, but obviously we're a week or so removed from that Paddy Pimblett Jared Gordon fight. What did you think watching that at home? Do you feel like the judges got that one wrong?
Yeah, I think I got it wrong. I mean, statistically and actually, how it watched, but yeah, just watching it like a couple times, like I said in other interviews, man, there's something to be said about star power. And like the saying goes, if you want to be the champion, you got to beat the champion. Well, there's also champions in like star power, and like Paddy Pimblett's one of it. You can't have such a close fight and expect the decision to go your way because he is such a character and he has so much hype behind it. So every time I watch it, I get a new view on things. I gotta give Patty respect in the manner of which like he fought to a decision and it was a tough fight. But yeah, man, that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And then speaking of judging, I know there's been a lot of controversy with some stuff that's been happening in the UFC with judging and everything else. Sort of the latest thing is this whole situation with James Krause, and now you fighters cannot bet on yourselves in fights. Of course, betting to win, not betting against each other. But what do you make of all that? I'm sure as a fighter, you're kind of paying attention a little bit to what's going on there.
Yeah, I think the problem is just showcasing the fact that this sport should be a legitimate, realized, sporting event, and we need to be treated like athletes, like in other promotions. So I think this might be kind of a kickstart of like a big transition phase for the entire program.
Mhm.
And I'm not a huge bettor, so like the news surprised me, but I'm not like
You're not
I don't think
devastated.
too
Yeah.
hard on it.
Yeah.
But the whole judging thing, I think there needs to be more experienced judges, like former
Mhm.
fighters, athletes, martial artists. The whole the athletic commission being appointed by just like boxing, like former boxing people, or like there needs to be more knowledge if you're going to be a judge.
Yeah, and I think they kind of go hand in hand in a way because I think now everyone's sort of looking at how this sport is being done, whether it's betting on fights or some of the judging. We've had some really interesting decisions. I feel like there might be some more accountability there. I mean, that's the hope here is that if they're going to look at, how they're regulating the betting, they might also start looking at some of the judging and some accountability. It sounds like there's some steps in that direction with Doug Crosby. I don't know if you heard, he's sort of been under the microscope for two bad decisions, one being the Paddy Pimblett fight and the other one the fight in Bellator with Rafion Stotts and Danny Sabatello. So it seems like there's a bit more focus on that. So I'm sure as a fighter hearing that, it's got to feel a little bit better that they're at least kind of looking at that a little bit more, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I kind of enjoy all these, like, investigations as far as keeping this sport realistic and not ending up, in that corrupt fashion that boxing seems to kind of take with the judging and the betting and some, was it a social media presence and
Mhm.
fighters not wanting to fight each other and that kind of thing. Like, I think UFC needs to stay in its lane and be more realistic.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, before we go, got to ask, what are the plans for the holidays? What are you getting up to?
Oof, stuffing my face.
Yeah.
Cake, family time, Christmas cookies, presents. Then yeah, I'll get back into training in January. Probably do some cross training elsewhere, and then yeah, slowly get back into things so we can get something scheduled before I have my baby.
That's awesome. When is the due date, by the way?
Oh, we got June 2nd.
Okay, so plenty of time. Kind of get
Yeah,
all those baby stuff now for the holidays, and then kind of use it later on, right? So
exactly.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Drew, thanks so much for doing this again. Congratulations on the win. If there's anyone you'd like to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everyone for reaching out and contacting me. Feel free to ask me any question you want at Drew Dober on Instagram or Facebook. Man, I love the fans and I want to thank the fans and I'd love to respond.